networking really is the gateway to building deep relationships that enable you to help a lot of people and in return get a lot of help back.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast. Delighted to be joined today all the way from Australia. We have speaker, author, business coach, business educator, and executive director of BNI Melbourne Central. Welcome to the show today, Braith Bamkin.
Thank you, Mr. Teasdale. I've been very much looking forward to our catch-up since we first connected a little while back. So it's great to be with you on the actual show.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a great one. So before we get kicked off in terms of what you do and how you help people, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself in terms of what got you to where you are today?
How far back do you want to
go? Give us all the juicy goss.
Well, I'll tell you what really started my professional career in a significant way. It was in the 1980s, because yes, I am that old. I had one of my very first serious jobs. I worked in commercial textiles, and the woman that owned that business was an amazing person. She built this extraordinary business. And one day she said to me, Braith, if you want to succeed in this business, you need to learn how to network. So this is the 1980s. There weren't computers around. There weren't that word. I didn't even know what that word meant. And we were driving along the Sydney Harbour Bridge when she said that, going into the city to do some work. And as we were coming back over the bridge, and I was looking up at those amazing pillars, and I said to her, Judith, what is networking? And she said, I'm really glad you asked. And she spent the next couple of years mentoring me on the power of building relationships. So networking really is the gateway to building deep relationships that enable you to help a lot of people and in return get a lot of help back. Right. So I've always been one who believes in helping other people. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever done any volunteering, but whenever you do volunteering, you seem to get way more back than you ever put in. Yep. And it's the same in business and in life. When you help other people and you do things that are selfless just simply because you want to be a good human citizen, it seems that the world gives it back to you in spades. So anyway, so that was a great thing. So I grew with that company. I took it overseas, and it was an amazing experience. And over my career, I moved into the telco industry, and then I moved into very, very random. Then I moved into a betting business, and I had one of their franchises. And then I ended up in BNI, and then I became the executive director of BNI here in Melbourne Central, which is the largest region in Australia. And yeah, so I have a very varied skill set, and along the way, I've done a few degrees, picked up a few bits of knowledge, and and I love to share that. Oh, is that a long introduction or is that a short introduction?
No, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's one of those great introductions that just got me begging for little nuances of detail as we go along. So, I mean, what are some of those key moments along the way that you look back on now and you say, that was a really pivotal point, or I learned a really valuable lesson at that stage that I've brought with me all the way through?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some really consistent things that have happened. And one of the things is a knowingness that things would be okay. And I know that's not a specific point, but there have been points in my career or my business life where things looked pretty dire. Like, unlike every business owner, I've had some massive highs and some massive lows. I mean, I don't think you can be a really successful human if you haven't had that go on. Yeah. But a knowingness that it would be okay got me through. And then I think that when you're faced with great turmoil or challenges, when you have that knowingness that things are going to work out okay, and that true belief that there is opportunity out there, there is abundance, then that gets you through. So I mean, I've had some spectacular fails. I ended up in hospital in Colombia with a machine gun in my face one at 7 a.m. on the morning, which is not a fun thing to do in Colombia,
Wow.
but I had a Bell's palsy, and anyway, that's a very long story. But that was a big health crisis, and it brought me to almost to collapse. But then I just always knew that there was a way out, and I navigated that out, and my business came back bigger and stronger than ever. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And you, as you say, you've had some wildly varied and rich experiences in your business career. What have been one or two of the examples that maybe you haven't mentioned yet, that you just a little tidbit of detail from some of those interesting
Yeah.
businesses you've had?
Well, I bought when I was the national sales and marketing manager for the mattress company I worked for. I bought one of their franchises, and something in my head told me that I could turn that franchise into a really successful store. And what I realized was that everyone knows mattresses help people get good sleep. But what I really tapped into was the knowledge that we could help people who had significant injury and were really scared of spending money on a mattress. Because when you've had a bad injury, you've had really chronic back pain, you want to get a good mattress. And I don't know what this would be in pounds, but in Australian dollars, it's like, $5,000 to $10,000. So I
Right.
guess what's about, £5,000 to £5,000 maybe.
Yeah.
So that's not an insignificant investment, but people don't want to do that unless they have absolute confidence that they are able to get what they want, right? Because it's
Yeah.
a lot of money. Because is it going to work? Because I need to sleep on it. So we trained our staff in that store to really work with health professionals, and that turned that store into a little gold mine. And we focus only on the health professionals in the local area. And what I realized was it's very easy to say to people coming to my store, we help people with bad backs, but
Yeah.
when you say we help people who have had significant injury and are scared of investing money in a good quality mattress, we'll take away that problem. We'll give them 100 night money back guarantee. We never gave one back,
Mm.
because we will spend the time finding out what you need.
Mm.
And so that was really the start of my knowledge that if you're really specific about what you want,
Mm.
you tend to get it.
Yeah.
And that is one of the clues to my success in business, is being really specific and very niched down. You tend to be way, way, way more successful. Because if I say to you, Paul, can you refer to me anyone who's got a bad back? Well, you'll know somebody that's had a bad back. And then your mind just goes, oh, it's everyone. I can't, too hard, too broad, can't be bothered. So you check out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Oh.
that's led over the years to really and that has helped me in BNI, and that helped me in BNI a lot. And then that has helped me with my speaking career, because people ask me all the time to come in and talk about that, which has led to a really very strong skew these days to leadership.
Right.
Because I've observed over the last 15 years of being in BNI what it takes to be a really great leader. And I've been writing all these traits down because I just wanted to say, like, I just want to be that person. Like, why are they so awesome?
Yeah.
So I just started documenting it. So I've got this list of successful traits.
Right.
And I went, oh, that's actually got some value in that. So I talk to that a lot.
Oh, wonderful. No, I mean, the whole point about niching has come up in a lot of conversations, and it's interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know what your experience is, in that almost the further you niche in some of these areas, the wider it's counterintuitive in some ways, because people
Yeah.
who aren't necessarily in that niche will go, I know you don't, I know you're focused on these people, but actually, could you help me? Because it sounds as if you
Yeah.
really focus in on the quality side or the care side, and you end up expanding your
100%.
business in places you wouldn't
Yeah.
expect. Yeah.
Well, that's really how in my speaking business, I started talking about leadership,
Mm.
because people were getting me in to talk about referrals all the time.
Right.
Because I'm an expert in that. I've been doing it since the 80s, and I'm really happy to talk to that. But people were saying to me all the time, Braith, you work with all these amazing leaders, and I talked about the list that I created, and people were always really interested by that list, and so then they started saying, well, tell us about leadership.
Right.
And so that's kind of really become my focus. Even though I was really talking only referrals, that led to the conversation that's become clear that leadership is and leadership's a really hot topic at the moment. Everyone seems to want to be a better leader, and there's a lot of stuff out there at the moment. But I've worked with so many people, and I've seen the formula over and over again of successful people. So it's like, why wouldn't I share that, right?
So, could you, and tell us if this is infringing too much, maybe share what 2 or 3 points that are on that list that stand out to you?
Yeah. Well, one of them is connected to what I said before, that knowing that things will be okay. So it's a knowledge that the glass is half full, not half empty. And around that are a whole suite of words, and the words that people use very clearly demonstrate to me where their head is at.
Right.
So when it's the first thing I see as a red flag is I'm so busy, dot, dot, dot. Whenever people say that, that's a person you want to go, okay, that's not a person I want to hang with. Because really, really busy people don't say that. They say, present with me the opportunity and I'll see if it works for me. Because everyone that I see in that success space is open to opportunity, right? So they don't shut the conversation down at the beginning by saying I'm too busy. Really what I'm too busy is that's not a priority for me. Right. That's not a priority for me in my life. And that is totally okay.
Yeah.
Even the busiest people, they have priorities and they decide. But the languaging they use is very careful. And you see that they just simply don't shut things down because you never know what the opportunity might have. They also have very positive language. They use we, us language a lot. So it's the collective. And I see very much that they have a mindset that their business is not their life. So they are not working 90 hours a week. They have a process. So let me rephrase that. Sometimes they are working 90 hours a week, but they're working, I call it in their flame, not in their wax. So they're doing things that light them up, not drag them down. And you can work really long hours, but if your job is doing this and you clearly love this and this lights you up, then this is something you might want to spend a lot of time doing. But I think you have the choice. If you chose not to spend 90 hours a week doing this, you'd also be okay because your business would survive. So when I see business owners who can take a month off from their business, they are business owners. If you can't take a month off from your business, you are simply an employee of your own business, and go get a job because you're going to get holiday pay, right? And there's no stress. It's like, why would you be an employee of your own business? It's bonkers. Yeah. So even solopreneurs, if you can't go away for a month and your business can't continue to run, maybe it's time to rethink that. So the really successful people have a plan and a strategy around how they can have their business work for them. And you hear so often people say you've got to work on your business, not in your business. But what does that really mean? I think it really means you've got to be able to step away from it. And I really mean this. It's the month. I think a month is a really good period. And I don't know what the length of holidays are in the UK, but in Australia we get 4 weeks holidays as a standard amount of time off. I know when I say this to Americans, they go, "Oh my goodness!"
They're like, more than 10 days is crazy, isn't it?
I know, right? I know. Anyway, I think some of the Europeans get 6 weeks, but we get long service leave here every 10 years. You get 3 months off as well. So people get quite a bit of time here, and sometimes business owners just don't take that. So I see that. I also see one of the other really big traits that I see consistently around successful business people is a sense of presence. And you can see it with their body language. You can see it in their eyes because they're looking at you, not through you, and not flitting around. And they will rest on you and they will give you their full attention. And that is a trait that I consistently see super successful people pause and invest in the person they're engaging with. Right. And I think that also is the next thing that I see is the investment in others. When you invest in other people, whether it's employees of your business or customers, and you're fully present, those people just seem to flow just a lot easier. It just seems to come to them a lot, because there's some people that seem to have really good success in their business and others seem to struggle all the time.
Yeah.
And these are the things that I see are the contributing factors to that. So it's really fascinating. Yeah. Chicken and egg thing, I don't know, but certainly successful people are present. They pause a lot in the way they speak, and they ask amazing questions. That is the other really, really great trait that I see. They ask great questions, and they're always curious to learn, always curious to be interested in what you've got to say.
Oh,
that's just a bit. I've got a big long list.
No, wonderful, because they're great insights, and I mean, there's a couple of things I'll reflect on within that. I think one of those elements of a great leader will give you that time and attention when you come into them with an idea, or if you're trying to put something to them. A great leader will give you that moment to explain yourself. And what I've experienced certainly is, if that isn't a priority for them at that time, they will be open and honest and very clear. And instead of saying, I'm too busy to even have this conversation, I've spent 30 seconds, I've maybe spent a minute to, you could have been coming to me with something completely brilliant, and it's but what you've come to me isn't the right time. But they'll follow that up with just one or two maybe encouraging words, or what this needs to do is go to this board, or it needs to go to this meeting, these guys over here. I should introduce you to someone because that really fits in with them. But they don't just shoot things down and make people feel
absolutely
bad about themselves either, do they?
Yeah, Paul, I think you nailed it. I think they, even if it's only 30 seconds, they'll give you the time. That they might give you a time to say, I would love to hear it. I've got a meeting to go to in a couple of minutes. Would you be able to sum that up in, a minute? So they frame the time that you've got. So instead of saying, I'm so busy, I've got to go to a meeting in 3 minutes, you've got 30 seconds. So that's negative language. But, Paul, I'd love to hear it. I'm going to a meeting. Would you be able to summarize it in a minute or less? Yes, no. Well, let's make another time. And they will make that other time. And when the time that they have allocated to that is up, they'll say, I really appreciate. So they say, thank you. I really appreciate. Words of encouragement, and you nailed that, because it's that positivity, because you never know whether that person's idea will become something more relevant, or whether that person will come back with another idea. But if you keep shutting things down and it's no, effectively it's very Pavlovian. You're training people not to come to you with ideas, right? So if you consistently give people time, and you consistently interested in them, even for a small period of time, again, it's Pavlovian. You're training them to come to you with ideas, and you're training them that you're open to opportunities. So it's clever, and I watch some people who are masters at it. I'd love to say I was a master at it. I'm a work in progress, but I watch the people who I really admire doing that, and I have some very successful people in my orbit. It's fascinating to watch them do it. And I know how busy they are, but you'd never know it, right? No. You are the one most important thing in the world right then at that particular point in time. And those people feel it.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe that brings us nicely on to, you've already mentioned it quite a bit now, the BNI, in terms of what you do and who you help and how you help them. For maybe some of our listeners who aren't that familiar with BNI, can you just give us an overview of what that is and how it fits in with you in Melbourne Central?
Yeah, well, if I'd have known about this 35 years ago, I would have been a very wealthy man today, because it is all the stuff that I knew about networking, but never had the right framework and language. So BNI was started in America 40 odd years ago by a guy called Dr. Ivan Meisner. It's a professional networking organization, and its aim is to generate business for its members through weekly meetings and a referral. So people go to a weekly meeting, they build relationships with people through that consistency, because consistency is power. And then there's accountability built into BNI. So if you don't like accountability, you will not like BNI, because it's high accountability. There's a lot of other wannabe networks out there, but they all say we're not BNI because we don't have accountability. But I find that curious, because, one of the other traits that I see in successful people is they're accountable to themselves and to other people. So if you can't be accountable to people in your weekly meeting, then, BNI is not the right place. That's okay. It's not for everyone.
Yep.
But I see amazing people come into the organization and join, and they, within about 3 or 4 years, I see a shift in those people, and they always move to the philosophy of BNI is givers gain, but they always move to massive givers. And what fulfills them, and this is another trait of leaders, is seeing other people succeed.
Right.
They get a feeling of great success out of seeing other people succeed. And when you do that, somehow the universe just seems to pay it back to you tenfold. And I see it over and over again when people genuinely want other people to do well, stuff just flows to them. And, it's a hard skill for some people to learn because it's not the way we get taught business should be. It's like, dog eat dog, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But business is not meant to be hard, right? It's if it was meant to be hard, then the universe got it wrong. So it's really, really great to have ease in your life and an easy business. And when you believe that's the default position, that's what happens, right? It becomes self-fulfilling. So BNI really has, for me, been an amazing way of bringing together 30 odd years of life experience. And I went, oh my goodness, if I actually started another networking group in the 90s, and we were having 300 people every month come to that. BNI is a weekly thing, but it was every month come to that. If I'd have only monetized it, then I probably would have done well, but it wasn't a thing in the 90s. But, because I'd moved to a new city and I didn't know anyone, and I thought, well, how do I get to meet people? Well, I build my own network, right? That's what you do, isn't it?
Yeah.
But but BNI is great because it puts a really tight framework around that, and I love it. And I get to, in my role in BNI, is I get to see people do amazing things. And I'm a highly emotional person. You can probably tell from talking to me, but I get such great joy of seeing people succeed using the system. And it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. People make a choice, and some people succeed and some people don't. But that's the human condition, right?
Precisely. No, wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
you not the first guest that I've had on who's been involved in BNI, and that's so Business Network International. Is that the
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just a great, as you say, sort of regional but multinational, international
Yeah.
body, but with sort of those regional and local connections where people
Yeah.
can really get to grips with the other types of businesses that are around, talk to people who are generally not in direct competition as well, isn't it?
No,
If
it's
I'm
one
correct,
category per chapter. Yeah.
yeah. And just learn from each other and go on that journey together. It seems to
Yeah.
me like so. It's on my agenda to get involved in that
Go
sort of
and,
thing
go
a
and have
bit
a
more.
visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you a great story, though. You've touched on the internationality of it. There's 310,000 members in 76 countries.
Wow.
And one of my members here in Melbourne uh, last year went to a BNI chapter in Latvia. I think I got that right, Latvia or Lithuania. And he met somebody and they'd struck up a relationship. And somebody from another chapter in Italy that he went to years ago in our lockdown, we had a big lockdown here. He visited that chapter there, reached out to him and said, "Do you know anyone that does air conditioning systems for?" And I don't quite understand the specificity of it. But he said, "Yes, I do." And he happens to be in Latvia. And so he connected these two people together. And that dude in Latvia is now supplying it's a Swiss Italian company with these products.
Yeah.
But the company that he was connected to, the Latvian guy had been knocking down the door with the CEO for years because he wanted to supply them and he wasn't open to it. But when the warm introduction was made by somebody within the network,
Yeah.
it was like, yeah. And Paul just talked about it on Monday. Yesterday we had a meeting and he said they're now generating 35,000 euros a month out of that. And
Wow.
that's just, isn't that random?
Yeah.
You hear stories like that all the time.
Yeah. No, and it just goes to speak to the power of the network and even the as you say, the sort of warm introductions, even if you haven't met these people too much, but you've had some level of personal connection, just having that conversation and saying you should be really speaking to Braith on this because I know he's really in that space. Then you start to just put those connections together, and people are really open to it once you've had those initial conversations with them, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's the implicit trust that comes with being a member in an organization that has a whole core
Mm,
value, set of core values that members adhere to. And so you know that if somebody is in a BNI chapter, that they're never going to let you down. And that's one of the things that people love about referring within the system is that if you're in my chapter and I've referred you to somebody, you're never going to let me down because if you let me down, what do I do with you? I'm like, well, I can't deal with him anymore.
yeah,
Then the referral is turned off.
right,
But the thing, if you get a referral, the thing you need to do more than anything else is make the person who gave you the referral look good to the referee,
right.
because that way, again, you're teaching them this is a great referral. I want more. Give me more.
Yeah,
And it's like the law of reciprocity on steroids.
yeah. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, abundant approach to everything that we're doing. I think there's a lot to be said in
Yeah,
that space. Oh, wonderful. So tell me a bit about you then, in terms of if your own performance. You know, you're there, you're learning, you're helping these organisations, you're helping the BNI chapter that you're there. How do you work on your performance? Where do you go to sharpen your saw and get
yeah.
at your best?
Yeah, well, learning is to me an essential. I'm always learning. I think that when you stop learning, you're dead. So I really love to learn new things, and sometimes my challenge is I'm doing too many things, and I have to kind of pull it back and go, okay, no, that's one thing too many on my list. The other thing is I'm a very dedicated, committed meditator. So I mean, I haven't missed a day now since March the 2nd, 2020. I've been meditating for a lot longer than that, but I made a commitment then that
Right.
I was never going to miss a day, and I haven't missed a day. And I'm usually up at, this morning it was 4:30. I did an hour's meditation before I met with you, and so I know that my life is a bucket of crazy if I don't do that. So it really helps to center me. And so that is a practice that I highly recommend.
Mm.
I had that health crisis, and one of the things that brought me back from that was I learned about laughter yoga
Mm.
and breath work, which, if you've never done laughter yoga, my friend, you are in for a treat. Have you ever done it?
I have not. No,
Oh,
not
mate,
not
you've got
yet
to.
would be the answer.
Yeah, that's the right. Got to do it. You're a fun guy, I can
Yeah.
tell, but you want to get into some laughter yoga. It is great. It is started by Dr. Madan Kataria in the 90s, and he was an Indian doctor that saw that people who had joy healed better, and
Right.
he wanted to see if he could replicate it. And he started by getting a group of his mates together in the park and telling jokes, and the jokes kind of ran out after a month. And he's like, "Well, how do we continue with that laughter?" Because people were loving it, and he was having this big crowd come. And so he worked out a system of teaching people how to laugh for the sake of it. So what your brain cannot tell if you're fake laughing or real laughing. That's a
Yeah.
really fascinating thing. So you know how when you're feeling down or glum, if you smile or laugh, you just kind of get that little hit. So it's a hit of dopamine that you get. So he worked out a series of exercises to do, not physical exercises, but laughter exercises, a little
Mm.
bit of stretching involved, so that people laugh on cue at nothing, and it's sustainable. And so over the years, there's been a lot of studies on it.
Mm.
And it really has been demonstrated quite scientifically. So you can look all of this up, that laughter actually changes the body's physiology and lifts your mood, because the brain just cannot tell. And so the vagus nerve, which is a big nerve that runs around your body, is very much calmed by that. You
Right.
get a whole pile of chemicals that flow into your brain. Again, it's all measured, it's all out there. This is not woo woo at all. It's fascinating to see people who do this really can change their lives. And really, breath work came out of that. So breath work is really, laughter yoga is the gateway to breath work. And I learned how to breathe properly. Most people in the Western world don't breathe properly. We breathe up in our chest or up in our shoulders, whereas we should be breathing deep in our belly, but we're obsessed with having flat stomachs, so no one wants to breathe like that. But really, it's breathing into your belly, and there's the diaphragm is like a big jellyfish that runs around the middle of you. So if you imagine that jellyfish going up and down slowly, that's what your diaphragm should be doing. So your stomach's going to stick out whether you like it or not. So and so I ended up writing a book about that, because so many people were coming to me saying, look, your life is so different,
Right.
what are you doing? And it started to become a job, because I became a laugh yoga instructor and a breathwork instructor. And I thought, well, I don't want to start a new career as a laugh yoga instructor and a breathwork person. I'm doing this for fun. So I wrote this book. It's a little shameless plug there, Paul.
Breathe easy. I was going to ask
Breathe.
what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, breathe easy. Simple ways to be well connected. So I wrote that. So in the context of a business person, so how you can. So it's really simple stuff.
Right.
Just really simple stuff. And there's three types of breathing. There's energizing, there's calming, and there's balancing. And I talk about little exercises you can do in the workplace, and I talk about the stuff that we do in our workplace that really drags us down. So just simple things like learning how to breathe diaphragmatically can change your life. It's mind-boggling. So yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, I was having a conversation with my son yesterday, my 9-year-old, who was upset about something, and I was trying to get I think it's called, is it box breathing, where it's in for
Yeah,
three,
yep, yep,
hold for three,
yep.
out for three, and do that 3 times, and
Mhm.
just seeing the physical change in him
Mm,
through that process, of literally 30 seconds.
mm.
It's an amazing thing. Oh, wonderful! And
Yeah.
I noticed the jellyfish on the front of the cover there as well. So
Yeah, well, that's why I did that, because I want to describe that sort of the diaphragm, because
yeah,
most people just don't get that it's a 360-degree thing around the middle of you.
yeah,
They think it's kind of like this little flat muscle. It's not what it is, but it's all around,
yeah,
and that's why it's got. If I use that analogy, I used to talk about having a pizza in your middle of the movie, pizza up and down, but the dough got sour, so I kind of thought, what can I do? And the jellyfish is really action. And if you sort of imagine a jellyfish just slowly gliding through the water in and out, that's what your diaphragm can do
right,
to help you breathe. If you learn nothing else from this podcast, Paul,
yeah.
please take that away.
Oh, brilliant stuff! And I'll make sure we've got the link to the book there, so that people can go and check that out for themselves. So,
Thanks,
um,
mate.
um, so if we ask a couple of slightly different questions here, if you could help anyone, any individual or team or organization with the skill set that you've got, who would you want that to be?
Yeah, well, I really, really enjoy working with small business owners who
Right,
are 3 years into their journey, because I know that at 3 years they've got past the difficult stuff, and they're really looking for ways to become true business owners as opposed to employees of their own business. So I love working with that group of people, and so I speak to a lot of conferences with franchise organizations and business owners, small business owners, because they seem to really enjoy that message. So they're people I love helping.
yeah.
So yeah.
I love that, and I love the again just that specificity of the 3 years piece, and
Mm.
the fact that it really hits true. It's like once you hit 3 years, you're in it properly there. Because I've seen,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I've seen people in this space where it's like you try it out for a couple of years. No, I've got to go back to having a
Yeah.
full time job, and then go back
Well,
to the
3 years
mattress.
is interesting, because what happens is you've survived the first 3 years, so your business is real, but then you kind of like gone, oh my goodness, I was really good at this before. Now I've just got this big, huge job, and it's exhausting me, and I have no time, no life.
Right.
And how do I be a great leader, and how do I be a business owner? And it's a really 3 years really seems to be a point at which people find that question pops up a
Right.
lot, and then you have to decide how you want to be, because
Right.
what you decide at that 3 to 4 year mark
Mm,
really sets you up for the next 5 to 10, 15 years.
wonderful. Oh, brilliant! And if you let's flip that on its head a little bit, then if you could sit down and have a coffee, have a meal, have a drink with anyone that you could really learn from and could help you perform, who would you want that to be?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I'm going to take a little liberty here. I'm going to pick a dead person. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do. We've had all
Nelson
sorts.
Man- Nelson Mandela.
Right.
I think that man is extraordinary.
Mm,
The Long Walk to Freedom is an amazing book. What how he moved through the world with what had happened to him is truly extraordinary. And I read everything I can about him. I really find him quite fascinating. And the way he handled himself throughout his entire life, he's just extraordinary to me. And I think, I know that being in his presence would be extraordinary. I think you'd feel that. And, when I'm around extraordinary people, you can feel it. And I think he'd be next level.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would definitely be someone who would make you feel like the only person in the room. And I'm sure
Yeah, exactly
you'd
right.
have a cracking laugh with him as well, I'm sure.
And people say that about him. When
Yeah.
you read memoirs about him, they say that he was really focusing on you all the time. And so that's one of the things that I started to think about when I read that. The first book I read, I can't remember the very first book I read about him, but I was in South Africa. I'd been to Robben Island, and I was like, oh my goodness, he lived here for how many years? 27 years. And it's like, and then I went, I have to learn about this man. And I was quite new in my BNI journey then, and I started to identify, oh, okay, so presence is a key skill. I'm interested in that.
Right. Oh, lovely. Yeah, I've been to Robben Island, had that experience.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's one that doesn't leave you. I mean, it's
No.
it's an amazing place. Oh, brilliant, Braith. I mean, sure we could chat for ages, but and maybe we will again in future. But if people want to find out more, if people want to contact you,
Yep.
where do they go? How do they get in touch with you?
Yep. Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, but the best place to find me is at my website, braithbamkin.com. There's a whole bunch of free stuff. Most of the stuff on there is free, that resources for people. And, I love to share. So there's a whole part of stuff there. I've got a really great course if people want to do a free little course on how to get your business referral ready. That's a shameless plug again. I've plugged the book. I've plugged the free course.
That's what it's here for.
But yeah. And I'm really. It seems to be at the moment people are inviting me on to conferences on web conferences. So
Right.
I haven't done one in the UK yet. So I'd love to be invited to the UK to do one of the online conferences. Or I'm actually in London in November, so somebody can have me live in November.
Well, there we go. Let's see what we can arrange. See if we can make some
Yeah,
connections.
thanks, mate.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Well, Braith, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. And there's been a whole lot to learn there. And it's just been a great experience. So thanks for being on today, Braith.
Thanks for being an amazing host, mate.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.